Oh, hey everybody, welcome to the show. And before we get into this episode 8 of the V100 show, how crazy is it that VMon is less than 5 weeks away? So I think it's 4.5 weeks as of today. You saw that video, really excited about VMon. If you want to register, head to vmon.com. Still plenty of time to get there. So I just wanted to plug that before we start this episode 8 of the V100 show. But with that out of the way, let's crack into it. It's great to be back hosting the show. I did episodes 1 and 2. And now we're up to episode 8. And this one we're featuring Michael Melton. Michael, welcome to the show.
Yeah, hello. Welcome from my side as well, from Heidelberg in Germany. It's late afternoon already here.
There you go. And I love your background. I was going to mention it in the pre-show, but just tell us a little bit about the background. What is that?
That's quite famous from a touristical perspective. It's the castle in Heidelberg. It's very close from where I'm here right now, and it's not as rainy right now as it looks on the picture, but it's the scenic view. It's the old bridge, they call it. Looks a little bit like Prague. I was asked for whether this is.
It does look a bit like Prague.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's got that very deep Eastern European sort of look, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But in Germany.
Yeah, and
very good.
Magnificent castle here in Heidelberg. Lots of tourists in Heidelberg to visit this castle, from all parts of the world.
Well, one day I'll get there for sure. I'll definitely get there. I've been to Germany. I'm probably going to see you in Germany a little bit later in the year, actually in Berlin. But that aside, let's get into the show because I really want to dive into your journey and then how you became a Veeam Vanguard. And we're going to show some really cool technology as well at the end of the show with regards to CDP, but not CDP that we might think of from a traditional Veeam perspective. But Michael, just maybe start off by giving a little bit of a background about your entrance into IT and how but you're a technical trainer, you've got a company there. Give us a little bit of background about yourself and how you got into IT to start with.
Absolutely. I took a rather unusual way into IT because I started studying chemistry in the 19th last century, and I finished last century, and I finished with a PhD in the early 2000s, so in chemistry. So actually I'm a scientist, but I realized by that time already that I'm more enthusiastic for reading IT magazines than for reading the important chemical papers I should read as a scientist. So already in my PhD, I took a hybrid approach, and besides working in the lab, I did program some molecular modeling program in C++. I co-developed a modeling system for molecules, so I took the branch into IT by then already. And finance.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah, sure.
I'm feeling very inadequate at the moment. I've got to say, like you're talking about molecular programming and chemistry and whatnot. So yeah, I'm feeling very inferior in terms of your level of skill on a PhD in chemistry. It's pretty crazy. But continue. Tell us how you got to be into IT from a PhD in chemistry. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I partly I financed my study already by working in IT for companies around here in the area. I studied in Heidelberg also, and by the time it was easy to get work in IT because there was a lack of people, and I did a lot of things for companies around here. I founded my all small company in the beginning. And then once I was finished with the PhD, I had the chance to co-found a company together with two chemists I got to know at university. And so we founded Idikos, which is the company we three founded together in 2001. And we are running that company since then. And we employ some other chemists and biologists and physicists as well. So quite a percentage are scientists.
Any computer scientists or any IT people?
Also, we have apprentices here for IT as well, and we educate people and get people to work in the company as well. So we employ, I would say now today it's half, scientists and half real IT guys, the ones that learned it properly.
Can I ask why? It's a very interesting, simplistic question, but how did that happen? Like, how did you do a university degree up to PhD, which is huge effort, and then kind of go, I don't want to do that. And by the way, all the friends that we've got around the circles. Why don't we just go start an IT company? It sounds like almost like it's, I don't know, it just sounds crazy.
Until today, I'm very interested in science. I still read a lot about it. And the thing is just, if you do a PhD in science matter, you dig very much into the thing. Yeah, it's very specific what you do. And I realized that all of a sudden, when it gets too specific, I tend to lose interest. I'm more like to have a global overview. And I mean, not specific like in IT, but more specific, down to the max. And I realized that it's I find more motivation in IT. Things are complex here as well, but
of course,
in another way.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? And what were you working on, like in those early days in 2001? Or what type of systems and platforms were you working on?
We were early adopters for VMware already. We had the first customer in 2002 for an ESX server environment.
That's really early.
It was version 2 by then, and very early days. People thought it to be a toy by then, so companies didn't realize that this will make it to the data centers. They thought it to be a toy. But we implemented it in university because we still had connections, and and then we developed the business approach here, and things came one after the other, and it turned out that ESX and VMware is a valid product for data centers, as we all know nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously that kind of pathway led you on to Veeam, but you've got a really cool story and actually an artifact of yesteryear. Actually, it's amazing that you have this. I guess it goes by being in the same company for 22 or 23 years. You saved your emails. That's really good of you. Let's maybe switch to the screen that we've got here, because I think this is amazing. And maybe just explain your first interaction and exposure to Veeam software.
My first experience with Veeam, I realized in 2007 in summer that there is a product by the name of Fast SCP. So we had no backup and replication by then. And I checked it out on the very day it was released. And I sent an email to a colleague, a friend and colleague, and told him, here, nice tool, that's English, but you have to test that immediately. Yeah, that's what it says in German here. So we started using Veeam from the very beginning because we liked the different approach that Veeam took to back up a virtual infrastructure. Because by that time, the other software systems that could back up an environment didn't do anything about virtual environments. They did it in the old-fashioned way. Yeah. And so we embraced the way Veeam did it, easy and fully adopted to the way that a virtual machine works. Yeah, we love that. And so we had our first customer as early as 2008 already. And there is a case study, therefore I can talk about the customer. It's a company by the name of Lamy. They do pens, you could say, or tools, writing tools, they rather love to call it. And they still use Veeam until today in the company. Yeah, so this was our first customer, and by that time there was no distribution in Germany. It was quite problematic to buy the product, because you had to have
it's a bit different now. Number one in EMEA for the longest time, like by a long way. So this is cool because I think this shows, for those out there that might not know the history of Veeam. Fast SCP was the first product that was released, written by Alexei Veselev, who's still with the company actually today in certain ways, and that was one of our smartest back-end engineers. Hi, Alexei, if you're watching. And this tool was basically a way to copy files from one ESX. It was ESX, right? Not ESXi, ESX server to the other using SCP protocol, which was a godsend. I remember actually using this tool probably before I started using Veeam as well, but it was a couple of years afterwards. So, I mean, explain the early days of, maybe just quickly before we get into the community section, then we'll go into the tech. But what was it like to use a product like Veeam early on, especially compared to the other products that you talked about? Like, what did it offer you that other products didn't at the time?
the ease of use. I mean, was installed and still is. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer nowadays because the
It does
product
take a bit longer.
fully featured now. Yeah, but by the time it could be installed in a few minutes, and you had the first backup in a few more minutes, and there was not much to do for a backup job. You just set it up, and it could even do application integration in the next release then, and that was about what we needed by the time. So it was just later on. Veeam had the marketing slogan, "It just works," and that's what I felt from the very beginning. It just worked, yeah. And we did recoveries, and they worked. And we needed replications for very important machines, and they were already there in the first version, in version 2.
Yeah.
And there was no
magic, right?
version 1, as far as I know, by the way. Fast SCP was version 1, I guess. At least I have never seen a version 1.
In a way. But I think you touched a point there on the ease of use, which I think my first interaction with Veeam was actually we tested it out after another product that we were using, which was similar to Veeam, ES Express or PhD Virtual. They were basically up and around. I'm not sure if you were aware of them at the same time, but they were basically almost bigger, and they were more successful and more well known than what Veeam was back then. But they had a really bad bug in the system, and we basically couldn't recover the secondary partition on a disk, and obviously that wasn't good enough. We had some issues, and then we tried Veeam, and next, click installed, worked, recover, all good, let's go. The rest is history. So yeah, it's amazing that in that sense. Hey, let's go quickly into the other side, because obviously the company, your background's all interesting. How about the notion, you're a technical trainer for Veeam, aren't you? So just explain that and how you got into that.
Yeah, it's also quite a funny story, because I was taking part in a so-called Veeam Expert Club in the early days, which they held in Germany once a year. And Anton Gostev was coming by once a year and giving us some information about the roadmap. And we had interesting discussions afterwards about things we would like to see in the product. Like, for instance, I always was voting for tape to appear. And by the time he said, no, we don't do tape, the rest of the world doesn't want tape. It's only Germany. Yeah. But in the end, we know it appeared and it's useful. Yeah, it changed. Yeah. I convinced him in a way. And he convinced me on the other side to go to a Veeam On in 2015, because I was reluctant to do so, because I said I can get all that information in the internet and it's not worthwhile traveling there and all the expenses and stuff. And he convinced me by giving me a complimentary entry pass for the event. And then I decided I'll go there. And it was magnificent, because the deep dive sessions there were brilliant. And on top, I got to know a lot of people that, for instance, interested me in becoming a Veeam trainer. And I'm still a Veeam trainer today.
Still very good.
Yeah. I work as a consultant still. I love consulting with virtual infrastructures and especially backup systems. But on top of that, I like to talk about the product once in a while. And therefore, I love it to present every 2 or 3 months the trainer presentation and talk to people about their needs. And I can give experience from the field, not only from a trainer perspective, but I can build in the experience that we gained from the field. And I love that very much.
And so not only do you have a PhD in chemistry, but you're also probably, one of the smarter guys when it comes to Veeam software, because our trainers have to be very, very, kept up to speed with all the bells and whistles and all the features in the product. So yeah, I can see how that fits. So I'm feeling even more insecure and small now compared to you, but it's all good.
You shouldn't.
And what about the community? So in terms of that community aspect, I guess you touched on it a little bit in that last talk about what you enjoy from being a trainer, but what tell us about how you've slotted into the Veeam community. You mentioned 2015. That was actually my first Veeam On as well. And I was actually a vanguard at 2015. So I was one of the inaugural vanguard that went to the 2015 Veeam On. So we might have crossed paths then. But tell us, in terms of community, what program you're in now and how you've found the Veeam community program.
Yeah. So that was another thing that was brilliant on the Veeam On. You got to know people with the same interest and also being experts in the topic, which you would never have done without traveling there. And I span a network, I would say, across the globe with people that were also working on the product and had the same interests as me. And by that, you got into discussions and you engaged in the forums. My first RD forum post dates back to 2009. I was working actively in the forums, answering questions, putting questions, of course, as well. And then when the community forums appeared, I was eager to engage here as well. And I'm doing blogs there every once in a while about topics that are of interest for me, and I had contact with in my projects, and that's what I love about the community. And the community is very special with Veeam. I work in IT now for 25 plus years, and I never met a community like the one that Veeam has.
Very special,
very special, very motivating. Yeah. And I love to work on an international basis with people, because I always did that in university. When you're working as a scientist, it's always a very international thing. And here the same happens. Yeah, it's an international expert community, and you get answers in the community hub within minutes to very special questions that you have there. There's always an expert on that very topic. Yeah. And that's what I love. And I love to be part of that. Yeah.
And are you just for the people out there, are you a Vanguard or are you a legend?
Yeah, I'm a legend. I love to say that. Yeah,
you are a legend. Yes.
Parts.
That fits.
Yeah, you mentioned being a Vanguard or having been a Vanguard in the early days. Yeah, you cannot be right now as an employee.
No,
I think.
Not allowed.
Yeah, but and I never decided to apply as a Vanguard, because you have to apply for the Vanguard status. Besides,
why was that? Can I ask why that was? Because obviously you probably had done enough, but what made you not apply?
Yeah, in the very beginning, I didn't realize that I would have to apply for it. I thought that people get picked, and when I learned about it, there already was the option to become a legend. Yeah, and legends are picked from their activity in the community hub, and that's what. Yeah, and it's the same in the end, because we are in the same community. So I don't make a differentiation there anymore. And therefore, maybe to complete my badges, I would want to apply for Vanguard once. But right now, I'm totally fine with being a legend.
Yeah, very good. That's awesome. And a legend you are. So, okay, let's crack into the tech side of this. So that was a really good intro to yourself, and I love some of the conversation. The email I think is still up on the screen. Could almost keep it there forever. It's such an amazing piece of history. I really want. I'm thinking about, say, Anton and even our founder, to have a look at this, because I think it's so awesome to see it. Anyways, so let's crack into the technology. So maybe just give us a little bit of an overview. Now, it's involving RTO. That was the topic of this 8th episode. So, honey, I shrunk the RTOs, and we're talking about CDP, continuous data protection, but not within Veeam. We're using an external third-party data core, Sans Symphony, which is, again, I think you and I talked off screen, and I used that product basically around almost this time, 2008-9, to be able to do replication and whatnot. It's crazy to see that it's still around, doing some really cool things. So why don't you take over, tell us about, a little bit of an intro into what you're doing, and then you're going to show us a demo as well. So let's rock into that to finish off.
Yeah. Fine. I always was a storage guy as well. I did a lot of fiber channel and iSCSI designs, mostly fiber channel, and data core is a product that is great here. But on the other side, RPO always was something crucial in backup, because especially in the days when we have those ransomware attacks, we don't want to have a backup from last evening. We want to have a very recent backup that we can jump back to if we are struck by, for instance, a ransomware encryption. And therefore, I always was interested in possibilities to lower the RPO. And I would want, in my technical presentation here, I want to give an overview first of how you would be able to lower the RPO using Veeam. And this was in the early days already. I mean, you obviously have a trivial approach here, which is to just schedule the job more often. Yeah, this is trivial on the one hand. On the other hand, it stresses the infrastructure because you run the backups more often. Yeah. Besides that, we can do log shipping for certain workloads like SQL, Oracle, Postgres nowadays. But as I said, only for very special workloads. Same for the enterprise plugins. We have them, but only for certain workloads. We can log ship every 10 minutes, for instance. Yeah, and then in case of a failure, we can jump back a few minutes. Yeah, but only for those special workloads. On top, we have storage snapshots. Yeah, you can do storage snapshots every hour, for instance, but in my experience, no one does storage snapshots down to seconds. Yeah, this would be even for the most efficient storage systems would be too much. Yeah, and then we waited for the CDP like Veeam did it. I was on the Veeam 2017 already, where CDP was launched. Yeah, or not really launched. It wasn't there, but it was announced. Yeah, and launched. It was a few years later then. And the CDP, the Veeam way, is working via network from hypervisor to hypervisor. It's quite close to what I'm going to present in a second, but it's restricted to a few VMs. You will not replicate the full scope of your infrastructure using the CDP with the Veeam way. But then, on the other hand, there is another approach that most of the people never saw, and this was when you were using Data Core as your storage system. Data Core is a storage virtualization software. You can run it in a VM. You can run it on a physical hardware. We used that for many years already, and it had a functionality built in that is called CDP, even before Veeam called that CDP.
Okay, yeah. And was that continuous data protection still?
Yeah, it's the same acronym, yeah, actually. And they had it in 2002 already, or 3. It's called CDP already, yeah. And how does it work? I mean, Data Core, since a few years, integrates into Veeam nicely because there is a storage plugin. Universal Storage API is integrated here. So we can do everything that we can do with other storage systems, like doing snapshots and recovering from snapshots. But on top of that, there always was the option to use this CDP functionality that other storage systems don't have. And in the beginning, with the first release of the storage plugin, it was only possible through a manual approach. And I took part, at least, in developing that together with Data Core. And we showed it in a deep dive session already, but it was kind of a manual process because you had to generate snapshots manually and present that to Veeam. And I blogged about it. I got the QR code here.
There you go. Love a QR code.
Yeah. But later on, it was implemented into the plugin as well. So there was a new release of the plugin, and Data Core together with Veeam, they do that together. Veeam has to release the plugin then later on. You download those plugins from the Veeam website. The plugin now integrates this CDP functionality, and this is absolutely unique, and I love that. And the nice point here is that this continuous data protection is a feature you just enable on a storage LAN within Data Core. So on the volume, it's just a click of a box. I've shown it here in the screenshot, and you have enabled CDP. And it's like a ring buffer. So everything that's written to that LAN will be put to the ring buffer, and there's no need to generate any snapshot. Because in the very moment you were struck by a ransomware, you can head towards Data Core and just scroll back in time with a slider in the matter of a few seconds or minutes or to an exact point in time and generate this CDP rollback point to the exact point in time when the ransomware struck, or a few seconds before, of course. Yeah, and that gives you the option to have the smallest RPO ever possible. And you don't have to generate snapshots beforehand, yeah, because you create that snapshot you need to recover from in the moment you need it, not beforehand. And then the snapshot appears in Veeam just like any other snapshot would. From that moment, it looks like any snapshot integration that is functional with Veeam, but beforehand, you can generate the snapshot in the moment you need it. The pros are it's very easy to implement. You can achieve RPOs of less than a second. Actually, you can get down to a single I/O here. Yeah, and it's for many VMs because all the VMs in the LAN are set back in time by this CDP rollback point, and you don't need to generate any snapshots beforehand. Cons, of course, have to be mentioned as well. You cannot have application consistency here because we don't do VSS beforehand. Yeah, this is a rolling buffer. It's just a moment in time. So you have crash consistent VMs, but that's most of the time not a problem. And CDP, of course, like snapshots, is not a backup. So you have to have an appropriate proper backup as well. Yeah, and you need some space, of course, like for snapshots, you need storage space as well. Yeah, and I brought a demo that we can dig into, and I can show the process, how it works in Datacore.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. You got about, I reckon, 10 or so minutes. So let's get through it.
Yeah. So here I got an environment. Yeah, I think it should be shown now. And you can see the virtual disk is an HCI environment. So Datacore is running in VMs, as you can see here, 2 VMs, obvious. 2 hosts, 2 ESX hosts. We have a file server. We have a Veeam Backup and Replication server, vCenter as well. And there we have 2 physical disks here, ESX disks, and 2 virtual ones being generated from Datacore. Here in the Datacore interface, you can see those 2 disks. There is one with 300 gigabytes and another one with 400 gigabytes. And the 2 nodes can be seen, and the disks are in sync. So this is a synchronous mirror because between those 2 nodes. And you can see the mirror is in sync. Both sides are up to date. And the same is true for the other disk as well. But here you can see another specialty down there, which is continuous data protection is enabled. And we have 2 hours and 11 minutes in the ring buffer already. And this was enabled, as I said, just by a click of a mouse. You just enable it here and set the size of the ring buffer. The larger you have the ring buffer, the further back you can jump in time when necessary. And this is all to it. Yeah, you just have to enable it within Datacore, and then your LAN is protected by this functionality. You can have that for all your virtual disks, for all the LANs. And the thing is that, for instance, here we can see the Veeam Backup and Replication interface. The file server has been backed up 9 hours ago. So if the file server would crash now because of ransomware or whatever, we would have to jump back 9 hours in time. And that's quite a large RPO. On the other hand, because the storage plugin is already installed here in Veeam Backup and Replication, we could see the LANs, but we couldn't see any backups so far. Yeah. So the LANs are there, virtual disk 1 and 2, but we don't see any backups. Here we can see the virtual disks in the ESX host, and here we can see them in the Veeam plugin, the storage infrastructure plugin. We could create snapshots here manually, just like we could with any other implementation as well, but that's not what I would want to show. What I would like to show is that we have the file server here, the critical one, and it carries shares that are crucial to my company, 2 very important files here. Can be determined by the name. And we have a fierce ransomware sitting on the system as well. And first, let's have a look into the files. Why are they important? We have a text file, absolutely crucial information. Don't want to lose that. And we have a PDF with a very important content as well. It's a data sheet, product overview of VBR. And now we enable the ransomware. Yeah, so just some user received an email and clicked the wrong button. And by doing that, We run that here on the server with PowerShell, but that could be a client system as well. It looked like an error, but it already did its work. As you can see, when you open the file, it's gone. Yeah, it's encrypted, and ransom would have to be paid now. So the thing is, the file server's backup is 9 hours old. So if I recover from the backup now, I have old data. It might be that the file server is in another state right now because people work since on my watch here, it's half past 4 p.m. already. So it's almost a day of work that would be lost. Yeah. We don't have any snapshots here. We have a backup that's 10 hours old. Yeah. And what we could do now is just jump to data core, head to the LUN where the file server resides on. And we have this ring buffer here, and we could now jump to rollbacks and just create the rollback to our needs. Yeah, and we select the point in time just before the moment when the ransomware struck. Let's jump 6 minutes back. That should be fine. I could even precisely manipulate that to the very moment I need.
Can you explain what the ring buffer is? When you say ring buffer, what do you mean?
Ring buffer, all the changes that are written to the LUN are written actually to the ring buffer, so they are still there. So you can just scroll back in time.
Is that like a journal?
Just like a rewind button.
Yeah, is that like a journal system in say Veeam CDP speak?
Yeah, it's a journaling storage system. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I
wouldn't say file system because it's beyond below the file system. Yeah.
Okay. No worries.
And now
Continue.
we created that recovery point, that rollback point, and I just have to rescan the volume now because Veeam didn't know about that. I did that in data core, so I have to rescan the virtual disk, and all of a sudden Veeam detects the presence of this rollback point. And this is what I mentioned. It wasn't like that in the first release of the plugin because it didn't care for CDP points. It cared for snapshots only, but they changed that in the last release. Now it also detects rollback points directly. Before that, we had to have a manual approach to that. And now you have the file server here, and the backup of the file server is just 6 minutes old. That's the good point about it. And we would be able now to either instantly recover from this file server, or what I'm going to show now is recover from the files, from the guest files here. This takes a second now because we have to mount the backup to an ESX host to do that, and the LUN has to be resignatured there. But yeah, we can just leave it run, and in a minute or so we will see our recovery options. I could maybe try to speed things up a little bit.
Yeah. The magic of a video here, being able to fast forward in time.
Yeah, we can see the rollback point here with the precise moment in time that we selected. And actually what the plugin does, it creates a snapshot of the rollback point because the plugin still detects snapshots only. So we have to make the rollback point a snapshot, but it does it automatically. And now it's initiating a resignaturing for the volume because it cannot have the same ID as the original one, obviously. And then it's mounted to the host. You can see that some magic is happening in the host as well. We see a virtual disk appearing here, which is the virtual disk 2 in the very state 6 minutes ago. And the ESX host will find the VMs there, and Veeam will be able to fetch the guest files out of it. Yeah. So that's the whole magic. So once the process is finished here, it's only a few minutes total runtime, even in larger environments, because it's a snapshot. Yeah. File server appears in its old state with an ID behind it. That's the usual process for snapshot recovery that always happens. And then we mount the restore point.
Yeah. the great thing here is that it's like integrated, right? So if plugin is validated, it's doing a lot of manual tasks you mentioned automatically through the purpose of the plugin, which is good, which is what those things are supposed to do. Validated sort of solutions that automate a lot of stuff that would otherwise be a little bit tricky. So it's doing a good job there.
Here we have the share.
While it's going, I wanted to talk a little, just quickly give a quick explanation as to why this.
Hold on a second. Now we have the file in the.
Oh, sorry. This is the big reveal. Sorry. There we go. Bam. Sorry. I screwed that up for you, didn't I?
The outcome. Yeah. So we have the files back in the very moment when the ransomware struck. So. That's the nice point. We can leave it run. It's an instant recovery afterwards, but we needn't show that. I mean, it's obvious that this is going to work as well. Yeah, I guess.
It's going to work. Yeah, it just works, right?
It just works, yeah.
It just works. Okay.
And I love that functionality,
yeah. While this is just finishing off, just talk a little bit. If I was to say, what's the biggest value of having the data core, plugin doing this CDP? What would that be for you?
Yeah, as I said, RPOs of that size are by no other means can be approached, in my opinion. You cannot have snapshots even on the most sophisticated storage systems. No one will do snapshots every minute or so. Yeah. And here we have a snapshot on demand, which can be every hour, every second. Yeah.
Or every second. Yeah.
Every second.
That's a level of granularity that's super, right? And I think that's what you're getting at. The granularity here of the RPO is super small, and then the RTO as well. With most things, like with Veeam, you've got a really quick RTO as well.
Yeah, because instant recovery has an RPO of a few minutes only. Yeah, and this is what I'm doing here right now, instantly recovering the VM. So within 2 minutes, you have the file server in the very state right before when the ransomware struck, running again on your environment. So that's brilliant.
Excellent.
And the ease of use, I mean, you can enable it on data core just by the click of a mouse. And within Veeam, as we said, it just works. Yeah. The only thing that's still missing, I'm striving for it and voting for it, is to have the option within Veeam to select a point in time. Because right now you still have to jump to data core and move the slider to the very moment that you want to recover from. But could be done with a script already. We did that, but that would be something to have in the interface. Yeah, for instance.
Yeah. So. This is great. I think it gives another option to the traditional CDP that we have. It builds on the thought process behind it, and being able to get down to 1 second RPOs is actually huge. So it's a really good example of, if you shrunk the RPO down to 1 second, that's what it's all about. It's been a great demo, a great show, Michael. Thanks for being on. I love the story, your origin story, the PhD, through to the trainer, and then obviously showing us what you're doing here with DataCore and one of our great partners as well. So, hey, thanks very much. This has been episode 8 of the V100 show. We will catch you next time.
Thanks for having me.